Hello, Orville Nation and Nerd TV. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another amazing night with a Talking Dark Matter with Joe MALLOZZI and guests. We have a very, very special guest today, guys. We have producer director Martin Wood. Yes, you guys heard correctly. The most prolific Stargate director producer on the planet. So we're going to bring everybody in one at a time, and I want to give an introduction to our galactic meteorologist, Katie Nicolau. Hey, Katie, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. I've done 4 hours worth of weather school talks with a school over Zoom, so my voice is shot, but we're going to do this anyway.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you repeat that, Katie? I lost you. My sound went.
Oh, no, I did 4 hours of weather school talks today, so I've been Zooming for the past 4 hours, and my voice is going to crack horribly, but it's still going to be fun.
Who are you teaching?
I was teaching a local school over in Wayne, Nebraska. 7th grade is a very hard grade to please. Like 2nd and 3rd graders, they like my energy. Felt like I was being judged every second with the 7th grade. But you know what? It's fine. I'm back with my people tonight.
Wow. Well, that's great if you're doing that with the kids. That's awesome, Katie. And can you go ahead and can you just tell us really quick what's up with So Many Fandoms?
Yeah, totally. So Many Fandoms, my channel where I post all my fandom forecasts. We have a couple of shows in theory. There's one that's moving forward. I have to wait until some of my weather friends get done with their semester because they went on to grad school. But we're going to do some whether or not talk and talk about shows and see if they actually did justice with the weather or if it's totally fabricated and garbage. Hint, it is most of the time.
Now, did you, just out of curiosity, have you gotten a call from Survivor yet? Are we going to hear one day that you're going to be on Survivor?
I hope so desperately that they end up calling, but I think with the extra COVID stuff, they're just pushing it back. But I'm still, comfortably fit. I can lift a crate of water. Like, that's fine. I'll survive, maybe. If all of a sudden I get buff, you'll know that I got a call.
Okay. Well, let me bring in author ADEGA Outlaw. Hello, author ADEGA Outlaw. How are you, my friend?
Hey, very good evening. Not bad. Busy as always. Nothing really exciting to report on, just busy stuff going on. But
awesome.
I wouldn't have been judging you in your class, Katie.
Yeah.
I would have been asleep, but I wouldn't have been judging you.
See, it's hard to stay asleep when I talk about hailstones and poop. Remind me to tell that story someday. But yeah, I find ways to keep kids engaged.
You didn't talk about Thundersnow?
I didn't talk about Thundersnow. I did talk about Sharknado in 3 of the 4 classes.
And I want to bring in our friend, and head elf at the North Pole, Nina Infinity. Hello, Nina.
Hi, what's going on?
Good.
Thank you. How's it going, everybody?
How is Santa doing?
He's doing well. You know what? I'm down in Mexico, and he's still vacationing down here for another couple weeks. So, by the 25th, he'll be out of here. He doesn't stay up in the North Pole when the elves are doing the work.
Now, can you tell us what's new with your channel, Nina?
Yeah, I just uploaded my episodic review of His Dark Materials Season 2, which dropped last night on BBC. So check that out. It's an awesome show. And I do Infinite Hope, which is hopeful news on Fridays because, we need hope. We need good news. So Friday, check out my channel for that. And yeah, lots of cool stuff like that. Movie reviews, things like that. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, PJ. I'm so excited.
It is. It's an honor for us to have you. And I want to welcome our friend and creator of Dark Matter and so many things Stargate as well, Joseph MALLOZZI. Welcome, Joseph. How are you
Hello.
today?
Under the hot
Hey!
studio lights. Hey, everybody. How goes? I have to say, I'm really looking forward to talking about this episode because, as I mentioned last week, this episode was the season 1 fan favorite. I think for good reason. It's a very action-driven episode. I mean, there's a lot of great character stuff, but it's really, chock full of great action. And, I couldn't think of a better director to bring on board to direct this episode than, as PJ pointed out, the most prolific Stargate director over the franchise's 300 plus episode history, the lovely and talented Martin Wood.
Lovely and talented.
Yes.
Welcome, Martin.
In equal measures.
Yeah, I don't get called lovely or talented. Oh, I get called one of the two, but I'm not going to tell you which one.
And it's such an honor to have you with us, Martin. Thank you for joining us and taking your time.
Thanks, BJ. Thanks for inviting me. This is so much fun to do something like this.
Now, Joseph was mentioning that we had this was the two-parter. I think everybody in the chat is following and watching along with us. I just to kick things off, I wanted to ask you because we had John Stead with us here last week. Is there anything, or what? I assume that there is some kind of coordination between you and John with working on this episode. Do you want to talk a little bit about how two directors put together one story?
Well, in this case, there wasn't an awful lot of coordination just because we were shooting them. We weren't shooting blocks of them. We were shooting individual ones. And when I started into this one, it was sort of the end of mine is the beginning of his. So there wasn't a lot of crossover that we had to do. Often when you do episodes where there's two directors working on a double episode, somebody will have one set that you use and somebody will have another set, and you get to shoot all of that person's stuff. But in this case, the Raza is all everybody's set, so it was we were all there. I think I had one set that was not on the ship, and that was when we went down to blow up a planet, and we had to find a planet that didn't have a lot of people on it, a couple of thousand or something like that. So we couldn't do that right near the Raza. So, but that's about as much as we got to do. We got to talk to each other a couple of times, but it wasn't so much that we got to. He was prepping while I was shooting. Oh,
well,
wait, sorry. He did the one before me, didn't he? He did.
Yeah.
The one.
Sorry. That's right. I was
Yeah.
prepping while he was shooting. That's right. Yeah.
And how did you come aboard? How did you come on board for Dark Matter?
Oh, I got a call from, I think, Joe. You called my agent and said, "Can we get him down here for an episode?" And I know Amanda was shooting in town at the same time, and we both said, "Oh, let's be in Toronto together. Let's do something fun." And it was wonderful to sort of be there for it. I loved walking onto the ship and going, "This is the coolest thing." It's a beautifully designed set, and it's so easy to be able to shoot everything you need and to especially when you're doing action like we had to, where you're running down hallways and you're moving around and doing a lot of stuff that using one room for another room and for another room and this kind of stuff. Like the whole idea of taking the vault and making it the same room was something that we sort of had to coordinate in putting it together. So we didn't have a lot of room to have the green screen wall behind us. It was literally 4 feet.
Martin, I remember actually when you were shooting in the hallways, and there are these fans embedded within the walls and the vents that I always assumed were purely decorative. And then apparently you were on set one day and you were like, "Can you make these? Do these work?" And someone was like, "No one has ever asked us that," but yeah. And then I was like, "Holy crap! They actually do work."
What was funny about that too is that we were shooting on a Saturday when we did that, and so it was a reduced crew, and we were all wondering. And that was when I sort of looked at these fans. I'm like, this would be very cool if this would work. And Paul goes, "I don't think they work." And then somebody turned them on. I was like, "Great, let's use those."
It was the first time I'd seen them working in episode 11.
Oh, wow.
Wow. That's cool.
Yeah. It was one of the things that was great about being able to do what we did too is that I got to use a bunch of effects that the show hadn't used yet. You know, just being able to do. We were out in space, right? We were doing when Vaughn's walked out and went to get Melissa, or didn't go to get Melissa. He went out to reconnect the FTL, right?
Yeah.
We did all that stuff with the magnetic boots and the him separating from the ship, and we did that all sort of virtually on the monitor. And it was fun. We had the actual model that they used for that they were using for the 3D version of the model of the Raza that we were using as the thing to track his movement. Yeah.
Mm.
That was an absolutely terrifying scene, by the way.
Oh, where he leaves and Jessica is and just because watching this red dot go and it's still all this drama about do something. And she says, do something. Well, look how far away he is right now.
Now I have to ask: are they a couple? Like they aren't brother and sister, right?
Well, who knows?
Maybe they're both.
It's not a
Maybe
weird
it's like some
acting
Game of
thing,
Thrones
right?
thing going on, Katie.
Yeah.
Oh.
Your staid, antiquated constructs, relationships constructs.
It's so bad that when he just floated off into the abyss of space, I was like, okay, good, we're done with that.
Someone died. Good.
Yeah, one less weirdo. And you know when I say weirdo, I mean it with a term of endearment, except for him and her.
Well, it just goes to show that they're great actors, that they entice that kind of, hate.
Oh, yeah.
I'm so glad you got floated.
I feel so bad for actors and actresses when their characters get killed off and everyone's cheering like Umbridge and Harry Potter. It's like, congrats, you died and you did a really good job.
But they can take, solace in the fact that no one ever dies in sci-fi.
Mm-hmm.
And that will be proven true in season 2. Wait for it.
Yep. It's true.
Now, Martin, Katie is watching every episode for the very first time, and so I just wanted to ask her real quick what her impression was of this episode, and then we're all eager to see your feedback, Katie, because she's watching for the first time.
I really loved every step of this episode, and it was funny because we got to the last, what would have been probably a commercial break with 3 minutes left, and I was like, all right, where's the oh shit moment? I know there's always one. Joe always says there's one, and then it happened. I'm like, what the? You took your game and just punched it up. I'm like, how's this gonna? I'm left with so many questions. You're making it so hard not to binge. I've built a support system now, just so you all know, where if I feel tempted to watch the next episode, I message them and they send me a different thing to watch instead. It has come to that.
Wow. See, I'm glad you're feeling what we're feeling, though, because that's how I felt every time that episode ended when it was airing. I was like, oh my God, I have to wait
more week.
And then the next season, and you're like, oh no, I'm going to have to wait another year.
No. Yeah. At least you can just jump ahead. Oh my gosh, imagine having to wait a whole summer or something. Mm. That's where fan fiction really takes off.
Martin, something that we've been learning as we're going along, Joe and some of his other guests are explaining to us, is how much the director really influences. And there was a scene in there where 2 comes in from the space into the airlock from space, and you could see the skin change and everything. Was that written out, or was that your vision of how it should look? That there.
Well, I think we discussed it in the concept meeting. We talked about sort of what the nictating membranes and things like this were going to be, because we figured that there had to be something that would preserve her, and due to the explanation that the android gives her later on, it had to be something that would form and then unform on her face rather than shielding that would come in and things like that. So. I think ultimately this was Joe and Paul coming up with the final design. But we did talk about what it was going to be, and we actually talked about whether she was going to have any makeup on and things like this, and landed on it's not going to work because it has to all disappear. So it wasn't worth doing anything that was practical on it.
Well, you give credit where the people were giving you ideas of it, but the actual cinematography, with the that image there, and then the blink, everything just seemed set up towards like a big shock, and you caught everything. I thought it was a beautiful scene. It's basically what I'm saying.
Oh, thank you. Thanks.
Yeah, it was great. My question though was when I watched it, and I remember thinking this the first time too, was when she's like this, but then that guy goes in to like look for her and there's nobody around, but he looks up. So, because I was thinking she's doing like some sort of Spider-Man situation like on the roof, but she's clearly not there because he doesn't see her. So how'd she end up going into the ship? That's my question.
Well, the thing is that as soon as Vaughn's walked out, there were no locks on these things. Mm-hmm. Nobody expects anybody to come in from outer space. And anybody that leaves would have to be able to come back in and control it themselves. So there was no reason to have that. Once he went in, there were no locks on the interior airlock. Right. So as soon as she got in, remember that there was a scene, I believe, where they realized when they were on the bridge that somebody was charging the airlock. So they came back in, and she knew that she'd have to. You can't open the inner door until the pressure equalizes. And she would have had to charge the whole thing, and that's the time she was most vulnerable, was on the ground there. And what I tried to do was, as we had what's his name, Kane, as we had Kane come into the scene, what I wanted to do was show the audience the same thing that we'd seen through the window, which was that same angle as you go down and you look and see where she was, so that when he walked in, it's the same angle, so that we know that he's looking at where she was. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that callback is really important for the audience, just to know that it's the same airlock, it's the same place. And so you use exactly the same approach that you use. So Kane walks in with the same shot that I used to show Melissa on the ground.
One of the many reasons why we love Stargate and the episodes that you do. You got a mind that really pulls people in, and we appreciate it very much.
Well, thank you.
And the fact that the airlock is logically explained. It's not just, it's just like that. That's the way it is. I can't tell you how important that is to fans like me who are kind of OCD about that. Perfect.
Well, that's a for both Joe and I can imagine that's a hanger on from the Stargate days, where as much as possible the science had to make sense. I mean, true, and I hope I don't blow anybody's Christmas with this, but when you walk through the Stargate, you actually just get to the end of the studio, but the science behind it has to be the science behind what we did for almost everything. We'd have arguments about ships and how quickly they can turn, and I remember walking into the writer's room and saying, I really need this to like turn and come back this way. And the argument came up, you can't do that. A ship that size can't do that. It can't heel over like this and do this. The physics isn't there.
The physics.
Yeah, we constantly have those kind of discussions about everything all the way through it.
Now, Joe,
and it's one of the reasons why when we were talking about what the device was going to be, and how it was going to be powered and what we were going to see it in, and how we were going to see it in the lab on the thing, what is it that would be coming off of it in terms of what the animation would be and things like that. Also should work in terms of whatever you're going to get with theta rays or whatever you're going to deal with it if you have a white hole sitting in your lab.
Joe, I wanted to ask you, how did you and Martin first meet?
It was on the set of Stargate. I mean, Martin, I learned just earlier, was on from the very beginning, episode 1, season 1 of SG1, whereas I joined in season 4. So, by the time I joined, Martin was fairly well settled in, and on one of our rotating directors, along with Peter DeLuise and
Andy Makita.
Yeah, Andy Makita and Will Waring.
Will hadn't started directing by then. It was
what year?
Will was our A camera operator
Yeah.
at that point. So it was Andy, Peter, and myself that were the three main rotation directors at that point.
Well, that's interesting. You have a camera operator who becomes a director. Kind of makes me wonder how that came about. Was he always planning on doing that? Something he went to school for, or you guys just noticed a talent and decided to give him one?
He started shadowing directors on the show and was always very much sort of he always wanted to do that. I don't know from the very beginning, but I think as soon as it started to, as soon as the Steadicam started to burn his body out, he realized maybe it's an easier thing to do that. And Will has stayed doing camera. He operated camera on some Game of Thrones just in the last season, I think. And then we had other operators that went up too. Steve Adelson. Steve Adelson was the A camera operator on Continuum, and then I brought him over to Sanctuary with me, and then started giving him episodes in Sanctuary.
And thank you,
So
John
it does
Burns.
happen. Yeah.
Thank you, John Burns. Katie, you have no idea how hard it was not mentioning the wow moment with Melissa O'Neill in this episode earlier.
I can imagine. Yes, thank you to everyone in the chat who has refrained from the spoilers. Much appreciated. I swear, if I read anything that I think it is, this computer's flipping over on the table and I'm walking away.
It was really hard last week not to say anything because I was like, oh, I can't wait until she sees it.
I'm so glad we've seen it. But now I'm wondering what other details are there. That was an evil chuckle. Whoever was chuckling just then. That was a knowing chuckle.
Martin, was there a favorite moment of this episode to shoot for you?
I think there were a couple of them. One, it was so much fun punching Mark Ben-David in the face, and I'm not sure.
Yeah, I can't even watching that going, how did he do that?
So when I first started talking to Mark about this, Mark is a very gentle, soft-spoken person, and I said, so then he's going to keep punching in the face. And he goes, wait, what? I said, yeah. And I'm going to have a stunt guy there, but only for the stuff that we do from behind. And he goes, wait, what? And I said, then I'm going to have this camera on the side, and it's going to look so good because the punch is going to look so good. It's going to be right into your face. And he's like, how close are we talking about here? I said, don't worry about it. It'll be a stunt person punching you. He goes, that doesn't help. It doesn't help that somebody who knows how to punch is going to punch me. And then that whole scene with Ennis and Conrad and Mark, and then when they brought Jodelle in and it got super creepy. I remember at the end of that scene when Ennis walked out, I remember he got out into the hallway and I could see him just as the door was closing. He went, ugh, because he realized how creepy he was being about it.
He has my favorite line in the episode where basically he pulls out the pliers and he's like they're not really sharp, so I might have to kind of twist them off.
So nonchalant.
Yeah.
It was so creepy.
You're making me worried about you, Joe, if you like things like that.
Oh my.
So,
There was that, and then there was a scene that wouldn't necessarily be something that anybody would really think about, but it was finding Jodelle in the vent when we had the guards come in, and it was just ever since I read the scene, I thought, oh, this has got to be one of these continuous shots that just ends up in the vent in the ceiling, and it works out. Sometimes the shot works just as it happens in your head. Not very often. A lot of times you plan shots and you get it as close as possible to what your brain's doing. Mm-hmm. But in this case, it was literally chasing along, and then they walk right underneath, and then the camera just tilts up and finds her up there. I thought that's exactly what it should be.
Yeah.
So when you're reading through a script, how long does it take to start to get those concepts of what you want the shots to be, or do they just naturally show up in a way that your brain thinks of it?
This is something Joe and I have talked about this before, where when I read a script the first time, I read it visually, and I don't do it on purpose. It's just always the way I've done it. Is I have a thing in my head about the direction they're coming in and who comes in which side and who's on the thing, and from that point on, I almost never change that, just because I trust those instincts. And I know that at some point, Joe and I were talking about it. It was an SG1 episode that we were doing, and I had the guy come running in, and he goes, "I always thought he was coming from the other door." And I was like, "Really? Really?" Because in my whole head, ever since I read it, it's always this direction. And then Brad was always, "The ships are going the wrong way." I said, "There's no wrong way. It's space. How can you have wrong way? It's just, they're, as long as the bad guys are going this way and the good guys are going that way, it doesn't matter as long as they're heading toward each other." But he would always say, "You always have the ships going the opposite direction." And Joe is like, with people, it would
be absolutely true. I was the same way, and I would talk about it with Brad, because you would imagine it's inconsequential, really, but on the page, you think visually as well as you write it, and then you hand it off to the director to bring it to life, and either it's the on-screen action or the visual effect. It's always the opposite.
Really?
Yeah, it's very peculiar. I would even write. When I do a shot list for all my for every show I've ever done. I do a full show shot list for it, and Joe can attest. They're fairly stream of consciousness. Let's say they're not. Here's where the camera is, and this is what happens. They give a bunch of different information, and they tend to go way off into outer space with what they do. But even in there, I'm writing right to left and left to right and this kind of stuff, just not because I need to remember it, but just because that's how I'm seeing it in my head when it happens. So yeah, it's I tend to think very visually as I'm doing it. So scenes in particular where something happens, I will hold on to that just because I want to aim towards getting to that scene. When we were talking about the vault being attached to these giant doors, which are the only doors we actually had that would work, and we said, okay, well, this is what we want to do. And I was like, well, we can't, because there's just literally isn't enough room to do a green screen back there. It's what's known as a fire corridor in there, and it's really to get people in and out. But honestly, it's not enough room to pretend there's this giant vault back there, because you can only ever look one way. You can either look out or look in, and to look in, you haven't got a big wide shot of these doors opening. It's always you're right on top of the doors as they open, because there's no space to get back to do it. And so if you want to make it look like the doors are opening, and I remember, Joe, I don't remember what exactly was happening, but there was a design on the door that we had to change because it was reversed on the other side of the door, and it couldn't be. It had to be the same design.
Yeah, it was not a symmetrical door. So essentially, when you do the French reverse, you actually have to take out the doors and flip them. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Otherwise, somebody would notice and go, wait a sec. That door had a divot going this way, and it has a divot going the opposite direction. It doesn't work.
And it's the attention to detail that I keep saying. Absolutely perfect and very much appreciated.
Oh, something happened the other night. My wife was watching Poldark, and in the middle of the show, I stopped it. She goes, "Wait, what are you doing?" I said, "Oh my God, I can't believe they just did that." And I went back, and Poldark was carrying a lantern, and it was two different designs of a lantern in one cutaway. And I went, "That's ridiculous! I'm out." And I walked out. I walked out to like. You can't do that to the audience, because somebody's going to realize
It's funny because, I'm the same way, but from a script standpoint, which is why my ex used to hate going to see movies with me, because I'd lose it if whatever the script equivalent of whatever visual a director will get hung up on, I would get hung up on.
So you guys just can't go to a show or a movie
No,
and
it's
just completely enjoy it for what it
very
is.
tough.
Yeah, you can't lose yourself in that. That kind of sucks.
See, that's why I don't watch any health things or hospital things. I start seeing them X-rays upside down. That is not the anatomy they're talking about, or this, that. It's like, oh,
Yeah. That's not an appendix. That's a lymph node.
Martin, I left this comment from Gap Stargate up because I wanted to ask you: did Sanctuary start as a web series?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh wow.
We were just slightly ahead of the wave on this. We started. Damien, Amanda, and I were working on Atlantis, and Damien came up with this idea and had a script for a show called Sanctuary. And we started talking about it and talking about the potential for it to be a web series. And we went out and actually found investors that would give us enough money to make it. It was about $4.5 million that we needed to make it. And we made the web series, put it up, and found that it is very difficult to monetize at that point, to monetize what we were doing. I think if we'd been 5 years later, we definitely would have been able to get the money back that we needed. But we had something like 1.5 million viewers watching these 8 episodes that we put together. And then the 3 of us went to Sci-Fi Channel and sold it to Sci-Fi, and then traveled around to London, Germany, and France, and sold it individually to those places with a woman called Carrie Mudd, and we sold it, sort of by the pound to make it, and then took those 8 episodes and actually took pieces of them and used them as the first few episodes of the series that we did.
That's amazing.
Wow.
You can
Can I
still watch
comment on-
you can still watch the web episodes, the webisodes. They're somewhere on the net right now. So
Wow.
Awesome.
I might have to check that out.
I'll put a link in the comments.
I wanted to just comment on what one of my favorite parts of this episode was, which was the juxtaposed scenes of when 2 is giving that heartfelt speech when they're all getting the oxygen's running out, and it's just like, we're gonna, or yeah, he's just like, we're gonna go and we're gonna, we gotta do something.
Yeah,
and
no.
his Braveheart speech. Meanwhile, the girls are actually kicking butt and taking back the ship, and I love that back and forth, and once again demonstrating how you can do powerful females in a really correct way.
Absolutely.
without diminishing the men, even though they were kind of they were without oxygen and they were locked up. There's nothing they could do.
But there's that great line where one says let's show them what the men of the Raza can do.
Yeah.
And punch, and you're into the fight with Melissa and
Yes.
Jessica.
That was my favorite. That was
perfect,
my
yeah.
favorite line. It was
Yeah.
so great.
Amazing.
I love that so much. And then
And it just kept going back and forth with them trying to decide, and Melissa mowing down these guards and just going through it, and Jodelle shooting Kane, and it was,
exactly.
yeah.
And then when it's the final bit, and then Jodelle opens the door, and they're like, "Ooh, yeah, well, what?" They're about to fight, but they're like, "There's, they see her, and they're like, what happened? What's going on?" It was so great. I love that.
Beautiful.
And the fact that it was written without the explanation about how 2 survived, that she doesn't stop and tell them something. It's how did you get here, and then you don't have the explanation because the audience already knows it, and then they come back afterwards and they're all wary of dealing with 2 at that point, and you're going, that's beautifully. I love the way it was written. It was a really it was a very tight episode like that.
Joe, do you want to take Jeff Beeler's question? Who was responsible for designing the starship's movements?
Yeah, that was our visual effects supervisor, Lauren Bancroft Wilson. So, we would talk things through, but ultimately, he and his team our visual effects team really handled all of the kind of really, this is pure visual effect.
And by the way, I do want to. You guys started to touch about this. That's why I left this. I put up this image. Unfortunately, it's not a very good still of the scene when two is kicking butt. But does she? To both of you, Martin and Joe, does she feel empowered after having been, spaced and survived? Like, does she feel like she has some kind of superpower?
I think she's angry more than anything. More than empowered, she's pissed off, and
yeah, she was pissed.
she's taking her shit back.
I'm getting my shit back.
Mhm.
Yeah, what's really interesting is that right up until she spaces Wexler, you're thinking she's gonna let him back in.
Mm.
Like you just can't believe that she's gone that far with that anger. And what's interesting is you see how angry she really was by the fact that she pushes that button.
Mhm.
I kind of didn't. I remember when I watched it, I was like, oh, she's so gonna space his ass. He spaced her. Like, there's no way she's gonna let him back in. Like, not even if she was like, I'm questioning my humanity now, like, because I survived space.
But
I feel like if I was human, I would have spaced his ass. Like,
there was a conversation that Melissa and I had about her delivery of I'm not you. And she said, how do I say that with conviction, knowing that I'm going to do this? And I said, the problem is you don't know you're going to do it yet. So you, Melissa, know that you're going to push the button, but you too, at that point, don't know that you're going to do it. So you get to say it with conviction because you're not only convincing him, you're probably trying to convince yourself that you're not him, because that war is going on inside. And often with actors, you remind them sometimes that they haven't read the next line, that they haven't read the next scene.
Mhm.
And it's part of a director's job to make sure that they play that they don't play the end of the movie because they know what's going to happen.
Mhm.
That they don't know that's going to happen right now. So you end up having to convince us. So if you're convincing doing that, let's let the audience be convinced of that as well. Which is why she delivers it in such a sincere way.
Yeah.
that's the great point. It's kind of like that duality I was talking about a couple of episodes ago when I always get their numbers wrong. One was having that duality, that moment of when he wanted to shoot 3, but he didn't because it was like that one instant where he's about to choose, but then he doesn't. So it's the same thing that was going on with 2, but this time she was like, yeah, no, I'm that instant.
Was it bad that I was kind of like Palpatine? I was just like, do it.
Oh my God. I was like, space that rapist's ass.
Yes.
Sorry,
There's another moment in this one that's really interesting, and that's when 1 and 3 are sitting down, and 3 asks him, "Have you ever hated anybody enough to kill them?" And what's really interesting is in my cut, in the director's cut of it, I cut to Mark to see him looking at Anthony and say the line. And what you did, Joe, which I thought was a much better move, was stay on Anthony for his answer. You stayed on his answer when he says yes, and you just get to see Anthony's reaction to it, which is, I think, more. I
love that. It was so great,
poignant moment than if you were looking at Mark's face. Yeah,
I saw that and I noticed that because he was like, "Wait a minute, are you talking about me?" Like, it was like this moment of like, the hell are you talking about? Like, I wouldn't be so sure, It was
This is
great.
actually not the moment you're talking about, but
that's the position they were in when they were talking about.
Yeah.
It's always interesting for directors when when a director finishes their cut and they hand it over to the people who actually have done the entire season and start going in to do the cuts and it's not just cutting for time. It's not just it's actually protecting character and doing a lot of that kind of stuff. And it's always better. I have to say, I'm not a huge fan of director's cuts. I like to do them myself, but I don't necessarily want you to see a director's cut, especially in a series. I want you to see the producer's cut of it. And as much as it pains you sometimes to lose a thing or to have a shot taken out or whatever, the idea is, I learned this, believe it or not, shooting news. I shot news, and I had to do this one thing where I had to hang out of a helicopter, and I got this shot, and I went back and I gave it to the news editor, and I said, "Here, you won't believe this shot." And then I watched the news story, and the shot wasn't in it. And I went down and I said, "What are you doing? Why didn't you put that shot in?" He says, "Because it was terrible."
No.
And it's like, yeah, but you know what I went through? He goes, "Doesn't matter. It was terrible. It was not a good shot. It didn't tell the story. It didn't do it." And I learned at that point to deal with director and producer's cuts, which is a director's cut. I know how much pain it was on set to get this performance or to do what this is, but the producers don't necessarily know that. They just watch it for, this is what this character would do. This is how this character would react. This is what, so even though you have different choices occasionally, and I'm not a director that shoots a ton of choices, so which is frustrating for producers sometimes, is they go, "You didn't give me enough choice in this," because I tend to sort of go for an edit with the cut that I do. And that isn't fair. And having been the producer on the other end and the receiving end of that, I realize that it's not fair sometimes. But in the moment, in matter of having to deal with time and all that kind of stuff, you sometimes just do it like that. But producers love to be able to sit there and do what they've done with all the episodes from that season, which is make it fit, they're the continuity to the series. And so there will be a great shot that you're in love with as the director, and then it just doesn't show up. And it's because it wasn't a good shot, Martin. It may be a great shot, but it didn't fit in.
Just like right now, I was watching Joe's reactions to what you were saying, and he kept smiling.
Well, Joe's had to cut a lot of my episodes. He's done, like, there are lots of times when he'd be the guy that would sit there being frustrated by the fact that there wasn't enough coverage, or wasn't something that will allow him to do what he needed to do with it.
Yeah, but I mean, ultimately, there's a reason you shot so many Stargates, and you're always busy, is because you're a great shooter. And the reason this episode is a fan favorite, it has a lot to do with the fact that you're a great shooter. So when I go into the editing room, I'm really, for me, I'm always looking for, I refer to those small moments, those small character moments, and that really is, aside from sort of obviously telling the story, those are kind of the little moments I'm always kind of fixated on, or trying to sort of focus on in the episode.
Joe, I wanted to. I left this question up from Matt Ryan because he brings up an interesting point. He asks if this is 5 first kill, because she seems to handle it well. Yeah, she does, and there's just so much going on in this moment. The fact that I think we introduced that gun in episode, was it 2 or 3, and then we never see it again. And it's just like another case of like something that a seed that we plant early on in an episode that we kind of pay off later on. It's kind of a role reverser here, because in episode 4 she kind of freaks out when she is witness to killing all those people, and now the roles are reversed, and she kind of gets it in a way. And this is also coming off that conversation with 6, where he's like, you're not one of us. You should leave. And in this episode, I think earlier on, she's like, or in the earlier episode, she's like, like it or not, I'm a member of this crew. And this is her coming full circle, if you will.
Katie, what did you think?
She empties the mag into the guy too.
Yeah,
she doesn't just shoot him. She empties the mag into him.
Yeah, because he was, sexually assaulting her.
I just can't believe that's the same freaking gun. How did I not catch that?
Oh my God, Katie, what did you think when 5 did this?
I felt like it was right. Like sometimes when you see characters who are the innocent type and they go and fight and actually break their innocent role, it feels forced. This one didn't because she was defending the people that she loves right now. And as anyone who's been in a position, not like this, but like in a position where you wanted to protect someone that you love, you'd be willing to break character to protect them. And it seemed very natural for her to just be like, okay, I know he's a bad guy. I know 2's a good girl. Let's just let's get rid of the problem here. And it just felt I cheered. Is that bad? I cheered.
Let me just do a couple quick super chats because we're getting backed up on them. John Burns, thank you so much. I read in a history of Space Empire where an emperor won a battle by flying under a planet to get at the enemy. The enemy was expecting from above. Thank you, John Burns, for your continued support. You've always been so supportive. Thank you, John. And NB Geeks. Hello, NB Geeks. Hello, friend. Hello, fellow geeks. Raise your geek flag high. Yes.
I should make a geek flag for the show.
I know. I need a geek flag.
Make some merch.
Thank you, NB Geeks. Okay, we're jumping around in the episode, but that's great because whatever's coming to mind is we're really addressing a whole bunch of things. Joe, what was one of your favorite parts of this episode? And I know you mentioned before, but
honestly, I love that throwdown between 2 and Tash. I thought that was an awesome fight.
I love that fight.
I thought both of them, Jessica Sipos and Melissa O'Neill, were terrific.
Mm-hmm. And you can always tell in an episode when the writers like a fight because they play the whole thing out. So often it's like, oh, we only need 20 seconds of this, or only 30 seconds of this. That fight just keeps going.
Yeah.
And it was like every piece of footage I shot showed up on the screen. So yeah, that was a great fight.
Yeah. And then kudos to where's John Stead, our stunt coordinator, who and as I said, both actresses who really gave it their all.
Yeah, that was great. I love that scene.
Imagine after that fight, they were just like, okay, where's the ice bags? All right, just take it.
That's the other thing I was going to mention was I really loved how when 2 is taking that army out of guys, like the first time she shot them, I was like, oh, like, yeah, she's going to take them out with like a bunch of bullets, even though like they're wearing like giant bulletproof vests and stuff like that. But then they got up and they were like, they just kept going and going. And at one point she like took the machine gun and she stuck it in the guy's stomach. She just let it loose. And I was like, yes, like this is how it's done with like actual, like, when they're dressed the part. Like they're not just going to go down with like 1 or 2 bullets from like a, handgun. So I thought that was amazing. That was a great fight scene in that.
Was funny that dropping the barrels on them was one of those things where we're in this place where we've got 2 levels. Let's just get up over top of them and let's take out 3 of them at once. And so I was talking to John and said, let's do this. We'll partly put something in the barrel so they don't just bounce around like empty barrels. And he goes, no. No, we're dropping those on people. I said, they're wearing helmets. He goes, it doesn't matter. They can be empty barrels and no one will care, but it's going to hurt no matter what happens. And it did. It hurt.
Wow. It's like, you're like, let's put sandbags in them.
Yeah.
I love the fact that you and I both enjoy the violence in this episode, Nina. It's wonderful.
I love the violence, especially when it's done right. Like I hate it when that's what I'm saying. I hate it when you see a show when like you have these guys they're dressed up in like major military wear. And then they're just taken out with a couple of bullets and they just stay down. And you're like, well, what's the point of you having all this hardware on then?
Exactly. Violence for the sake of violence. Something that the show avoids and does it well.
And
see,
John
it's one of the things right now.
Right? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mark.
Yes. Yeah, he was. I was going to say that's the one thing that one of my favorite lines in The Mandalorian is when they comment on the fact that these stormtroopers can shoot them all they want. They're not going to hit them. And then that whole scene of them taking target practice and not being able to hit. When you hang a lantern on that kind of stuff, and it's like, these guys just can't hit anything. And then Jon Favreau keeps making fun of the fact that they can't hit anything. I love that. That's the way to do it.
That's funny.
Thank you, NB Geeks. He has all 4 seasons on DVD of Sanctuary. What a great show.
A lot of behind the scenes in that.
Oh, wow.
Awesome. That's why I think DVDs will never die, because you have all the bonus features.
That was their plan.
Yep. I agree.
Now, Martin, when you first began into the industry, where did you begin? What were your beginnings?
I started shooting news, and then directing news and directing hockey, doing live television, and then came out to Vancouver to work on a show, and kept coming back out here. I taught school for 11 years. I taught film and television in Edmonton. And would constantly have my students keep going out and doing a lot of work in film, and would go out for the summers to here. And then when Stargate came up, my friend Ron French was the producer in year 1. And I came in and met with Michael Greenberg and with Rick, and said, I'd love to come in and do some second unit directing. I'd already directed 1 episode of something, I think. And I was a first assistant director. And they said, well, we'll hire you as the first assistant director on this for these 2 episodes, episode 2 and episode 4 of the first season. And nobody knew what Stargate was at that time. Nobody had any clue. And then as I was coming to the end of the 4th episode as an AD, I literally 2 days before I left, Michael Greenberg called me into Rick's trailer, and we sat down. He said, you're not going anywhere. You're our second unit director. We need somebody to shoot a whole bunch of the pilot again, to reshoot a bunch of the pilot and shoot that. And that's going to be you. And I said, great. And inside I was screaming great and jumping around in my head because I loved the show. I thought it was so cool. And from that point on, I just kept doing. I did a bunch of second units for it, and then they gave me the first episode. They gave me, and then about halfway through that episode, they gave me the bottle show for the season, which was politics. And so I did Solitudes and then politics in the first season, and then from that point on, I just kept going and going on, and ended up having to go to NORAD and shoot the 10 years worth of, or 8 years worth of establishing shots.
I was going to ask you, what would you say was your most challenging episode of Stargate to shoot? Can you?
The most technically challenging was Matter of Time. And that was, were you there when Matter of Time?
No, that was before my time as well.
So that was, I mean, turning the things sideways and making people climb up and having gravity go sideways. That was one of the most difficult ones in terms of technically difficult to shoot. The other one was, I don't remember which one it was. It was when Tilk and Braytak were dying. Do you remember that one, Joe? That was when they kept sharing their symbiote.
Yeah.
There was a lot of technical problems with that one that we had to work through, and that was another one that was difficult. I don't think there was ever an episode that was a challenge to shoot. There were always fun challenges to overcome with things, just things that we always had to do to make things. I can tell you this is one of the funniest things that happens. Some of the hardest scenes to shoot in Stargate were boardroom scenes.
To keep them interesting?
Wow. Because you'd shot them 1,000 times. It got to the point where I'd be in my office, and I was across the hall from Joe. Do you remember when I was in the back corner office, and Joe, you were in there? And I'm sure you heard me groaning because I'd go, ugh. Oh, 5 boardroom scenes. Oh, I wanted to shoot explosions. I wanted to shoot action. I wanted to shoot, drama. But it was boardroom scenes, and boardroom scenes tended to be the exposition for the sake of explanation, where you had to do it. And I remember in season 7, I did a shot which started at the bottom of the stairwell and came all the way up through the stairwell with a Steadicam, following the 2 guys, and then it goes into the middle of the boardroom. And I had them cut the boardroom table in half, and have 2 things on it that you could just snap back in. And so we'd follow them up the stairs, and I went through the middle of the table, followed them around past the windows, and by the time I got back down to the other end looking at Hammond's office, they'd pushed the table together, and it was literally an impossible shot. It was an impossible shot. Where people are like, how did you do that shot? But the only people saying it, not the audience, it was the people that I worked with. They're going, oh my God, how did you do that shot? I'm thinking, I did it. I did it. For the first time in 5 years, I've had a unique shot in the boardroom. So
That's
I just realized,
fascinating.
did you guys actually have like an office in Stargate Command? Like, or was it a trailer?
no, we had offices above stage 5, where we were above the gate room.
Yeah, and I always remember. I don't know how old that building was, but it was pretty old. And I remember when you would shoot those episodes. Usually, you would shoot those episodes where they'd be firing their P90s. My office would shake.
Yeah.
Whoa.
I have a very funny story to tell you. When I went back to NORAD in season 8 to shoot new. Can I do this? Can I take 2 seconds to do this?
Yeah.
I'm not talking about episode 11 of Dark Knight, but this is a funny story along what PJ was just asking.
Please.
So I went back to shoot this. The first time I went to NORAD, nobody knew what this was because it was literally 3 weeks before the show was on the air. We had to shoot for 24 hours, day, night, day. We had to stay up for 24 hours. I was there with a guy from MGM. We went in. I had a crew waiting there for me. Nobody knew anything. We had 27 extras, 27 people who lived in the base that were like, yeah, we'll do this. Yeah, sure, we'll help you out with this. Had to stay for 24 hours. Same 27 men and women walking around, guard duty, driving the cars through, doing this kind of stuff. We said, okay, we want to open for the pilot, I needed 2 cars to drive out, which is impossible in NORAD. They never have both gates open at the same time. You open one, drive in, search the car, close it, open the second one, drive through. I said, it's got to drive straight through. They're like, well, we can't do that. We don't know if we can do that. And I said, come on, let's just do it. Let's just get it to happen. They finally got it to happen. And we shot all this stuff. And this one guy came up to me that worked on the base, and he goes, you know what the problem's going to be? They all think we have nukes under this mountain, and now they're going to think there's some dumb Stargate or something like that. And I'm like, yeah, that'll be cool. You'll love it. He goes, we won't love it. No, we won't love it. Okay, jump forward 8 years. I go back. I get picked up at the airport. I get driven in, and the guy who's driving me is such a huge fan. He's like, oh my God, I won a lottery to come and pick you up. It was just terrific. I got to do this. And I said, okay, so how many background people have we got? He goes, there's 200 people waiting, 200 fans that really want to. I can't come in, and there's literally 200 people, off-duty people from the base that wanted to be in it. Oh, I love your show. I love your show. So this is great. So now we have, for the last couple of years, we have new people doing all this stuff. I'll get through this as quickly as I can. We're shooting in the morning, and this Hummer drives up, and everybody, all the background people go, oh no. And I went, oh no, what? And this guy with a flat top, just 90-degree flat top, gets out. And they went, it's the head of security. And I went, okay. And he walks over to me and he goes, son, come with me. And I went, I'm directing this thing, this thing. And he goes, come with me, son. I said, but and he goes, I know what you're doing. I know the second you step foot on the ground at the airport. Come with me. And I'm like, okay, see ya. Set up this shot. I'll be back. So we jump in. and we drive the kilometer and a half into NORAD, which is in the mountain. I'd been in there before when we shut the 20-ton doors and things like this, which are unbelievable. One guy can push them. They're that well balanced. But we drive in, and I'm trying to make conversation with him. I'm trying to talk to him about stuff, and he's literally doing this. And at one point, he does this. And I went, this is scary. This is like going to the principal's office with a murderer.
You won't be coming out of that mountain.
And so he's driving along, and I just stopped talking after a while. We get to the Atco trailers. They're inside this thing, and they're all stacked up on top of each other. And he goes, follow me. Okay, all right. So we get out. I apologize for people who have already heard this story. We get out. I'm following him, and he's walking faster and faster. And I'm like, okay, I have no idea where we're going. And then I start thinking, wait a second. The commander of this NORAD base is a Canadian. And is a Canadian general. I thought, maybe he wants to see me because I'm a fellow Canadian. And then we go up, and I'm actually able to look into rooms I'd never been able to look into the first time around. Like Space Command and all this kind of stuff. I can see stuff, and I'm trying to look in, and he goes, eyes front. And I'm like, this is not a go see a general kind of thing. We get into this hallway, and he stops, and he looks at me, and he goes, look. And there's a door right beside me, a white door with a window in it. And I look, and it says Stargate SG-1 and an arrow that went down. And I went, what? He goes, I'm such a huge fan. I can't believe you fell for all that. I bring people in here all the time. All they want to see is where's the entrance to the Stargate. I actually had to take this broom closet, make it into the entrance to Stargate. Everybody that comes into NORAD asks that question right now. Huge fan, huge fans. And and he started naming episodes. And it was so funny because he'd been gaslighting me the entire time. He goes, you should have seen the look on your face when I stared you down in the car. And I went, yeah, I should have. That was funny.
Oh my God. What
they have a door in NORAD that says where Stargate is down 28 floors.
Awesome.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
That is an amazing story. Let me just read. John Burns, thank you for your Canadian $5. After Alex taking care of the security guards doing the last episode, you get Melissa in this one. Although Udell had wow moment herself. Yes, she did. She did have a wow moment.
She had a couple. It was great.
Mm-hmm.
This is the episode that sealed in for me that I need to cosplay 5. And I will neither confirm nor deny the existence of a turquoise ombre wig in my Amazon shopping cart.
I knew it. I knew it.
Yeah, the other thing that was really cool about her in this episode was that, you know, when 2 was saying, like, she's my, like, kind of like my trump card. I don't remember the exact line, but she was saying when he was in the gonna get spaced. I totally had faith in her. I was like, oh yeah, she's gonna break that door, no problem. Like, you know, and like I actually think that she would have broken in if that guy hadn't given the code. So it was really cool for me to come to that point with that character to know, like, oh yeah, like no problem, she's got this, you know. Oh, the dog agrees.
You must show the puppy.
Yeah, your dog has to do a cameo.
Yes.
There's 2 of them. There's a Basset Hound and a Portuguese. And somewhere in here there's a cat too. They're all hanging out when I'm in here.
Oh my goodness.
I love kitties.
Martin, now the guys spend a lot of time in one room. Was that a challenge at all? In this episode?
Not really. That the only challenge is Roger tends to say, I'm going to sit here, and then nod off. And Anthony was all the energy, and so that whole thing when he stands up when Mark is talking to him, he stands up and he sits back down again. That was all Anthony. It was a lot of fun actually being in there with all of them because it was, you know, Alex is the one that's supposed to be Zen, and Roger's like, I'm sitting here. Okay.
I think I love this crew when they're drunk, and I love them even more when they have hypoxia. They just like turned into adorable guys. It's just, oh, look at your little oxygen deprived brains.
I remember when I first watched this, and they were all, because they were all kind of showing off their characters, and he, like 4, you have like very zen, and 3 is very emotional. 2 is kind of like, messed up, and of course, but he gets taken out for a while, so you don't see him and his reactions. Then you had 6, and I gotta say, I was not feeling his character at all, and how he just seemed so like, well, whatever, we're just gonna die. Like, he just seemed so like, kind of like he'd given up, and I wasn't feeling that at all. And even like that comment when Five was like, yeah, I got a knife, and he's like, when did you start carrying a knife? And I'm like, is this really what you gotta pay attention to right now, dude? How about thank you?
I kind of saw that in like a totally different light, because I thought him like with 2 gone, he's like, oh crap, now I have to be the parent. Gosh dang it. And like he inherited the parental zen that you have to have. Like, someone has to be calm and think this through. I guess it's going to be me.
Yeah, there is a couple of things. One is the fact that they just lost 2, and he's also worried about 5. But there's also, he's got other baggage that basically is yet to be revealed.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Those things
You damaged him more?
Those things were interesting, Joe, because this is on my second watch through. I was like, oh, like that's why that I had that feeling. So,
and he starts. I mean, one of the reasons he sort of went full Yoda with some of this stuff too is that he's on the brink of realizing some things about himself. I think that just being cooped up in here, he never has time to do that kind of stuff. So it actually felt to me like it was a very apropos that he wasn't going to move around. He wasn't going to try and do an awful lot.
Joe, how would Truffaut have reacted if she hadn't spaced Wexler?
If she hadn't, actually, I mean, that's a good question. What would Truffaut have done? I mean, more than likely, she probably would have let him go, which is, why 2 ends up spacing him.
Oh, and I just realized we haven't actually talked about the major thing of the episode when the planet exploded. Katie, did you see that coming? Like, oh.
Wait a second. Like, the second that there was like a scientific lab, I'm like, oh crap, science going to heck. Right? They leave. I'm like, oh, is this gonna be like the good guy walks away from an explosion with that epic in the background, doesn't even look back, and then when they don't know what happened, I was like, oh wait, they didn't like swap something? They didn't do anything. It just did that. Oh gosh, and I immediately had like flashbacks to Star Trek 2009, the JJ verse, where the black hole's like sucking them in. I'm like, so help me if you kill them right now. Come on.
That was crazy for me, Joe. I was like, "Oh my god!" Like, and I love the effects of the planet just shattering everywhere. And
Beautiful.
I was really cool.
And kudos to Lauren Bancroft-Wilson, our VFX supervisor. And as I mentioned in our discussion of episode 10, originally Truffaut was at the lab. Was supposed to be at the lab taking the accepting the parcel, but because Tori couldn't do the second episode, basically she was she had a conflict because she had a con and she was going to cancel the con, and I'm like, well, don't cancel the con because you're going to make money at the con, so I'll bring you back for another episode if we get a second season, and I did. In fact, she big kind of a fun recurring character, but she actually survived being obliterated.
That's awesome.
That's good.
Comic-Cons help.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
I love the shot too. There's a shot of the planet blowing up, and there's a shot of the planet blowing up with the spaceship with the Raza coming at you. That was nice.
Yeah. That was great.
I like the fact that you get to see the Marauder dock and then they take off, which is
the docking was so smooth. That was perfect.
It was great. It was so great.
Yeah, because at that point the audience is all on pins and needles going, it's not going to stay. It's not going to, like, you've already seen the effects start through the front of the through the front windows, and you're thinking they're not going to get out of there in time.
Well, that was the thing that was really cool about it, was that this whole episode, you're kind of like on the edge of your seat, and you're like, you know, you're like, oh, what's going to happen? Are they going to get the ship back? Like, what's going to happen now? And then they do, and then they blow up a planet, and you're like, holy shit, this is pretty intense.
Yeah, you're waiting for that moment where, like, I swear, Joe, every time the episode comes to, like, the last 4 minutes, I'm thinking, all right, strap in, you're gonna get launched into hyperspace, like you're gonna be thrown around, you don't know what's gonna happen. I was not expecting that.
Yeah.
Great.
I thought, okay, maybe you're gonna murder someone, or you're gonna have an evil twin show up or something. No, planet. All right.
There's some talk in the chat about a Dark Matter Monday flag, Joe.
I will design that.
All right, excellent. Get to work.
Happily. I'm going to actually use my Photoshop subscription, so we'll see what I can do.
And I want to say thank you to Entertainment Hacker for the. It's jumped on me. Sorry. Thank you for the super chat, Entertainment Hacker. I don't know where it went.
Isn't technology great?
Hey, Entertainment Hacker.
Oh, there we are. Thank you, John. Thank you, JP. For he is in Tokyo. Thank you for the 100 yen, our friend. Everybody sub to Entertainment Hacker. He is great. And actually, if you guys give me a minute, I'm just going to run through these really quick. John Burns, thank you again. Sci-fi version of the Resistible Force versus the movable object stormtroopers from Star Wars versus the red shirts from Star Trek. Thank you, John. Thank you, John, for your support. And Jeff Beeler, thank you, John. And Jeff Beeler, how are Canadian science fiction shows like and unlike each other? That's an interesting question.
I mean, in terms of being like each other, I mean, I think Canada has a much the basically pool of talent is much smaller than in the U.S. So you'll often have directors who have worked on other sci-fi shows, and writers, and really more cast members. I mean, Roger, who, I think he put in a couple of guest appearances on Stargate. He starred in Dark Matter. He did Continuum before that. I'm sure he'll do another Stargate show in the future, or a sci-fi show in the future. And in terms of how they're not unlike, I mean, I guess like any sci-fi show is unlike another one. I'm not sure, I guess.
Now, everybody loved your story, Martin. Everybody loved your NORAD story.
Yeah, that was great. I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, this is the first time I heard that one.
I thought they were gonna tell you, like, stop telling, like, people that they can use doors. You're like some Hollywood director. Get out of here. This is the army.
It was amazing how huge the Air Force, how big fans of the show they were.
Oh yeah. And I was saying that I spent 3 months in Guam doing the Operation Christmas Drop, which was all on an Air Force base in Guam, Anderson Air Force Base. Mm-hmm. And there I had some odd fan status because people would come up to me constantly. And one of the reasons I got onto the base was because of Stargate, because they were big fans of the show. So it was, and it was really, working with the American Air Force is incredible. It's scary, but it's incredible.
Yeah.
You guys should have hired that guy as an actor on set, because if he fooled you,
nobody would believe him. Nobody would. If I ever said, "Hey Joe, this is the guy I want to use as a colonel," he'd go, "Come on."
That's great.
Yeah.
Now
sometimes they look too much the part, the stereotypical part.
It's like, no, you're trying too hard, bud.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, Martin, there's a lot of those veterans and active personnel that watch shows like ours to just connect with you guys, you and Joe. They follow you guys.
Well, I have nothing but respect for people in the U.S. military and in any military, but in the U.S. military, they have been very good to us all the way through Stargate. And truthfully, this movie I did wouldn't have happened if they hadn't been open to living us onto the base for a couple of months.
Wow. Do you want to just share really quick? Is that movie coming out, or is
it's out. It was out at the beginning of November. It's on Netflix. It's called Operation Christmas Drop. Operation Christmas Drop is an actual mission that is a mission from that Anderson Air Force Base has done now for 69 years, nonstop, no matter what's going on. They have done Operation Christmas Drop, where they take tons and tons of airdrops that they do over the all the Micronesian atolls and islands that surround Guam, and they are, for some of those atolls, they're the only contact that they have. They drop supplies every Christmas, and it's an actual real mission that's been going on. It's all by donation. It's quite a remarkable story that they've been doing this for this long, and I was able to make a movie that's a love story wrapped around it. And
I'm totally gonna watch this. I just checked it out. That looks so cute.
Yeah, it was Alexandra Ludwig and Kat Graham, and I had an amazing time with both of them. They are who you see on the screen is who these two are. They are so much fun, and it was a really good thing to shoot. And the Air Force literally said, "What do you need? We'll help you as much as we can." And they absolutely did. It was wonderful. And it's all shot in Guam except 3 days, which we shot in Vancouver for Washington D.C.
And also, speaking of Netflix, what we were talking earlier, that a show that you're working on is the #1 show on Netflix right now.
Yeah. I started 2 seasons ago. I started on a series called Virgin River, and I did a couple episodes the first season. I did a few more in the second season, and then if there's more seasons, I'll have done 6 more of them. It landed or it dropped on the 27th, and it's still in the top 10. It was #1 in the world for 8 days, which surprised all of us. Surprised all of us.
Wow.
Yeah, it was. But it's one of those shows that is so easy to watch, and it doesn't hurt to watch it. You don't have to think a huge amount about it. It's relationship. And Virgin River itself is this beautiful place that looks a lot like West and North Vancouver and Squamish, but is Virgin River. And
can I tell you the truth about this? I'm gonna be honest with you. I watched this. I watched the trailer for this show, and I was like, this looks good, and I want to watch it. But the trailer gave too much away, so I was like, I gotta wait. Yeah. So I forget the trailers.
Well, you gotta see the second season is that much better than the first season, and subsequent seasons will be even better than that, because these two, Martin and Alex, have just got their. They've nailed these two characters, and they're compelling to watch.
That's great.
Another tool in Tim Matheson. Another tool in Tim Matheson are stupendous to work with.
I'm definitely gonna watch it, but I mean, sometimes the trailers, you're like, oh man, this trailer.
Yeah.
I want to ask one of my favorite lines from the episode, and this is not the shot because I don't have the shot for that, but when 5 comes in to free and 6 goes, since when did you start carrying a knife? And she looks at him, and I swear I would not have been surprised if she said to him, haven't you been watching season 1 of Dark Matter? That was one of my favorite lines. And
I think I saw someone in the comments, they put how much of that scene was improvised, where they were all oxygen drunk.
No, not a lot of it. Those were all written lines. For the most part, this cast was really good with the lines. Anthony would sometimes just throw in his own flavor. But for the most part, you got an awful lot. Alexander Ludwig was in Vikings, yeah. But you got a huge amount of what the writers wrote coming out of their mouths without a lot of improv.
Nice.
Now, is there any chance, like we were talking a lot about Netflix, is there any chance that something like Netflix could bring back Dark Matter season 4, Joe?
Here's the issue. Netflix owns the first 3 seasons of the show for I don't know how many more years. So it really doesn't make sense for another streamer to pick up a show that the first 3 seasons already reside with Netflix. And Netflix, on the other hand, is a subscription-driven show, and they use algorithms to decide their pickups. And the reasoning is they already have the Dark Matter fans. So they're more likely to save a show like, let's say, Lucifer or was it Longmire? A show that a show that started somewhere else. That is more likely to happen. So
Wow.
At this point, unlikely. I think our best shot would be a mini series somewhere down the line, something like a Peacekeeper Wars. Farscape did.
Wow. Okay. Interesting.
We are just in the process right now of talking to a number of streaming services about Sanctuary 2.0, and it's. It has the story has been written, and we're very, very happy. There's 3 or 4 of us, and Joe, you should know that Tom Vitale is dealing with the first storyline.
Tom
he was instrumental in making sure that Stargate went as far as it did, and he was there for the beginning of Sanctuary too. He's the one that pushed Sanctuary into Sci-Fi Los Angeles.
Tom's great.
Yeah.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Now, Martin, we prod Joe on this like every other week, but is there anything you can tell us about new Stargate?
No. No. There's a lot of questions about it. I get asked a lot of questions about it, and I keep saying I'm not the person to talk to about it.
I'm not the person either.
I think MGM is looking at the landscape right now, and they should be just going, "Oh my God, the time is ripe," for this, and to see the longevity of the fan base. And now this new year, Stargate's moving to Netflix, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think it's
SG1.
SG1 for the first time. Yeah.
It's crazy because just earlier this week I was looking. I think True Blood is getting a revival. Battlestar is getting a revival. I think there are like a half dozen shows that are getting a revival. I'm like, where's that Stargate revival? What's going on?
What do you mean by revival for True Blood?
It's coming back on HBO. They're bringing it back. They're doing
Really?
Yeah.
Like with different actors, or like it's like they're just re-releasing the same.
To be honest with you, I think it might be different actors because I saw a quote by who plays is it Suki Anna Paquin. She was asked about True Blood coming back, and she was like, this is the first I hear about it. So
oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's insane. I mean, I was a huge fan of True Blood, so I'm just like, Joe, what?
Yeah. Google.
I'm gonna definitely Google it. Oh my God. That's funny.
Now, when toward the end of the episode, when they decide to take this shipment and deliver it, this is I was surprised actually that they delivered it. Like at the end, it happens really quick, and I was surprised, but it was interesting. I go back.
They did have the conversation.
They did, yeah.
They had the conversation, and two ended up walking away from the conversation, going, "Yeah." Knowing that now three is feeling the same way he is about the way that they're feeling, and yeah, there's not that, hey, let's do this. It's just now you're in the lab.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just clarify. The reason I was surprised was only because we had been living all this turmoil on the ship, and it's just like I forgot that they were still, you know, working this.
They still had a job to do. Yeah, back to work.
But very cool. And I apologize. Dr. Adega has we lost him. His internet connection was not steady, so I'm sure he's listening. Martin, what's on your bucket list professionally that you want to do? If we may ask.
What's interesting to me is that I'm open to so many different things right now. I went about 5 or 6, no more than that, 10 years ago. I suddenly got cast into the role of the director of romantic comedies and things like this, where I'm doing all these things that are so drama driven and very little action. And I came out to do Dark Matter. I came out to do Killjoys. But back out here in Vancouver, I was being, I went to Paris to do a love story between Jerry O'Connell and his wife, Rebecca Romaine. I went to Fiji to do one with Catherine Bell and Cameron Matheson. And I'm sitting there going, why am I going all over the place to do these romantic comedies? And I don't get to blow anybody up. But you sort of do you get typecast as a director into a lot of things. And for me, what I really like is the ability to be able to do everything. I want to do a thriller, a Netflix feature thriller that I'm talking to them about right now, I like the idea of doing. I've always enjoyed doing series work. I'm a huge series fan, just because I like to fall into something that is that machine where you keep moving through it, and the actors know their voices. And so that it's a movie, you start with a blank page sometimes, and you go all the way to the end where it's it hits the screen, and you have much more control as a director over a feature. But the growing pains are there, where you're doing all the casting, you're doing all that kind of stuff, and so you're literally taking it and you're accelerating its growth to be able to make it into a movie. Whereas with a series, you get to come in and the cast is already there, and like I said, their voices are already there, and you're able to just figure out. And every show I go into, I always try to watch all of the episodes of that thing, so that I know going into it what I'm dealing with. And then when actors say, "I wouldn't do that," you go, "Well, you did actually. The first season, you did this because of this." "Oh, you know that, do you? Okay, yeah." They forgot about it, but you as a director need to remember that, because there's a reason why it's in the script. So there's so much series work going on right now. I like being open to all of it, and especially with some of the technologies that are being used right now, like Mandalorian and their volume. That to me, outstanding work, and being able to do those kind of things again when you've got those the new technologies being used. I just love it.
Now, do you have, Joe, do you have a go-to group that, like we have the group of soldiers here? Is there a go-to group of actors that you use for these?
These are stunt guys that, I defer to John. He has a stunt team. It certainly helps that they're kind of disguised. You can't see their faces, because if you could see their faces, you probably recognize them from previous episodes.
Okay. I did want to ask Katie, because this is your first impression on everything. What did you when we saw 2 being revived from being spaced, and then we see the scene here with the android? What is your impression of what we learned about her being special?
I think from the space zombie episode, I can't remember which one it was, when she had the bite. From that point on, I was like, okay, something's happening to her where she can't get hurt. I think she might be immortal. And so I've just been like watching for hints maybe in the episodes. And I think when it came together for this scene with the android, it was almost like the android was like, haha, you're like me. And she was like, it's just a bump in the road. I'm just going to keep on going. So I feel like she still has a ways to go with accepting that she's different, which that is a metaphor for most people. And but I really like the way that it wasn't revealed immediately after you found out something was off with her. You got to wait, and it just marinated in your brain. Like, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. Maybe she was already a zombie. Who knew? And it felt great to actually get that resolved. Like, oh, she's nanite. That's good. Okay.
And this kind of goes back to even before the zombie episode, but episode 3, where the android's going out to do the EVA, and 2 says, please come back. We can't do this without you. And the android says, well, you can. And the way she said that, she's specifically saying to 2, you can. And I remember, when the episode first aired, people, the fans were online and they were taking, analyzing the episode. They were like, wasn't it weird the way she referred to, it's like she was saying specifically to 2, you can. And other bands were like dismissing it. It's like, oh no, basically that's just, she was referring to the rest of the crew. And of course now you find out she was specifically referring to 2 for a reason.
So this is why everyone's going back and rewatching it.
Joe, I also want to really, I think it's great story that things come back full circle, and Wexler is in the airlock and she is. It's just a great story.
Yeah, I love if you never do that in a story, either bookend. I mean, that's what we did with Universe. We bookended. We had that beautiful opening shot in the pilot of the ship opening up, and we're going through the different levels, and then in the final episode, we're basically kind of reversed. And we're going through the different levels, and all the ships and corridors and rooms are shutting down. Lights are shutting down. It's kind of the same way. I love kind of the pattern of repeating or paying off or mirroring, and I mean it's something I do on the page, but it's something directors do, and it was something like Martin was talking about in that earlier airlock reveal with 2 not being there. That's really interesting because on the surface you don't even think about it, but it's he's kind of implanting almost a subconscious visual cue for you, so you don't really know why you're reacting this way. And then when he explains it, it's obvious, but watching it, there's such a subtlety to it that it's really interesting.
Yes, it was really cool.
Martin, we have a question here from John Burns, and you mentioned a little bit. How is maybe you could elaborate? How has things been progressing for you since COVID? You talked about a little bit.
Well, I mean, it's that the whole crew is protocoled to the hilt. We're on Netflix shows. We're wearing KN95 masks and face shields. We get tested 2 or 3 times a week, and the whole crew gets tested. In some shows, they're testing the actors and they're testing the people that are in the red zone who are around the actors all the time because the actors have to take their masks off. But in the show I just finished, the entire crew was tested all the way through, so it's tough. Vancouver is one of the only places that's really working right now, and it's going crazy out here. There's like 60 shows or something like that being shot in Vancouver, and everybody is following these very, very strict protocols. So you actually feel safer on set than you do going into the mall,
Sure.
because everybody's wearing the same. We all have the same type of masks. We all have the same face shields. We all have and you just don't take them off. Everybody's washing their hands. Everybody's doing so. And there's a COVID team that just sits there and walks past you with their arms out, and you go, "Oh, right, we're too close."
They don't just take 2 shock sticks and stick them together and just back it up.
Yeah, it's interesting, and the other thing is that you have to the way that you shoot is different too, because we're I had to do I can't tell you what I was doing. It had 40 people in it though, because too many people. Your audience is very smart and will be able to extrapolate from some of the stuff I've said what I'm doing. So I can't actually tell you what I was shooting because I don't mean the name of it. I can't tell you the scene I was shooting because it will suddenly explode. So I had 40 people that had to be in a room, and 40 people together in a room interior is not cool. So what I end up doing is taking 10 people and shooting through them with very much longer lenses and having corridors where our actors could walk, where they were actually 8 feet apart, 8 feet away from the background performers. But because of the length of lens that I'm using, it actually puts them on top of each other. So I have background performers in the back, background performers in the front, and going through people's heads and stuff. And the actors are moving through them. And they're only dealing with each other. The actors are only talking to each other, but everybody in the room has to have their masks off. So in order to make it look like it's full, like it's more than 40 people, or there's even 40 people there, I have to shoot through these people.
So you're creative with it.
Pardon me?
You're getting creative with it.
You have to. Yeah, you have to, just because you're trying to protect, the yellow coat. That was in Toronto.
Yeah, that's when actually I ran into you.
That's right.
When you first got into town.
That's right.
And there you are in your shorts. I have to say, basically, Martin and Dan Shea, who was a SG1 stunt coordinator, you would always find them in shorts. Like in the dead of winter, there we go. There we go. Always in shorts.
Yeah.
I am accused of the same thing, Martin.
I left Canada because it was too cold. People like you confused me.
I was at that point. I think when Joe saw me there, I may have been the only person in Toronto wearing shorts. But yeah, we were. I was out on the street, and you were buying chocolate, Joe.
In fact, yes, I was. I was buying chocolate. Well, there you are. Now, those spacesuits are always a challenge, just because of the lighting, right? I mean, and reflections, and this was I think the stunt team doing their show and tell for you,
right? Yeah, it's always hard to light a face inside a helmet, and on Stargate we had different ones. We had different suits that we had to wear that had the face shields on them that were and then we had space suits that we had to wear. Good story. Jason Momoa is the only human being on Earth that I know that cannot fit his head inside a space helmet. He looked at me and I said, "Jason, you got to put the helmet on." He goes, "Dude, I cannot get it on my head." I said, "Is it the hair?" He goes, "Size of my head, man, size of my head." And he couldn't put a space helmet on. Chris Judge, on the other hand, wouldn't put one on because he's so claustrophobic. So whenever there was an episode at the end of season 2 or 3 where I had to, I actually dressed in the spacesuit to do the Tilk spacewalk because Chris would not put the helmet.
What is it with Chris? Basically, he won't put on the helmet. He's deathly afraid of bears. Like he didn't go to the.
No. He's deathly afraid of beets, Joe.
Yes. Also, I was going to get to that. Deathly afraid of beets.
Beets,
yes.
like the vegetable.
Yep.
Yes.
And bears. Bears. When we were shooting.
Bears, bears. I get. I understand bears.
When we were shooting Earth. Well, but this was a bear that was wandering around in when we were in Scorched Earth. You know that area that we shot in Scorched Earth. His trailer was way off with other people and stuff. Somebody mentioned a bear that they'd seen on one of the paths, and he wouldn't come out of the trailer.
Aww.
But I understand that because it's a bear, but a beet, like that's a
Apparently he
vegetable.
doesn't like beets. He doesn't care for beets.
They attract bears.
Yeah.
Is that how you guys came up making Rodney allergic to citrus? And
No, that was one of the writers who was before my time was apparently deathly allergic to citrus. So they just gave it to Rodney in
That's funny.
yeah, as a tribute to him.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, that's the that where the card you showed. That was our amazing props department.
let me put that back up. Do we have you for 5 more minutes, Martin?
Yeah.
Just to go through the pictures.
Sure.
Do you? I don't know if you want to answer this question from John Burns. Maybe you can't. Are you
O'Neill, the
shooting
Wonder
Colonel
Years
O'Neill?
narrated by Fred Savage. Oh, I wish.
Thank you, John Burns. Let's put up the image to back up that I just took down about the problem I was talking about.
Yeah, that was just the scan card from the previous episode that they used to gain access to the research lab. I think I might have that somewhere. I kept quite a few of the props.
Cool.
How do you direct any more of the Dark Matter episodes? I'm sorry, I don't.
That was the only one. That was the only one that I actually got to direct on that one. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think the next year I was doing Killjoys. Amanda came in to do a couple of episodes on Dark Matter, the second season.
She
And
did
I was over at Killjoys.
She did she did like was it our premiere? Was that Bruce McDonald?
I think it was, yeah, because we were both there for the beginning. Yeah.
There they are, the lovely Jessica Sipos and John Core.
They do look related.
Yeah.
It's creepy. I think I'm forever going to refer to them as Hansel and Gretel gone wrong. Just that vibe.
Okay, and there we go. That's the
Wow.
Our space suits.
Very cool picture. And we see the on the back. We see the the Raz's.
Yeah, all the concept art and the for every episode during prep week, you'll put up, the art department will put up the various reference photos or design work.
That's really cool.
And Joe always gives back behind the scenes pictures, Martin. There we go.
This one actually, it was Paul's episode. He was on set for it, so I didn't get as many shots. But there's you.
Oh yeah.
In the shorts.
Always, yeah.
And like on set, it is cold. Even if it's an indoor set. Like I've been on a couple in Chicago where it was freezing. How do you not freeze in those?
I have a really good furnace. Powered by white sugar.
There you go. Yeah.
So this is a scene from episode 10, and episode 10 was short. So I ended up writing this scene to drop in episode 10 that was shot during the episode 11 schedule. And in the back, on the screen in the back, we always used to have like varied backgrounds, deserts or lagoons. And then there were the fish, and everybody loved the fish.
Yeah.
I remember throughout the first season, fans would always ask, like, is that an aquarium in the mess hall? In fact, it was not. It was, part of our trip screen.
Yeah, what's funny is that and I know I tried to cut around it. I'm sure you did too, Joe. There's a shot, and I think it's Roger walking in front of it. And if you watch, it's that one moment when the loop ends and starts again, and you just see them go, like this. And I believe it was in that scene. And I mean, that's
it wouldn't have been the first time I had to avoid that.
But I wasn't able to cut it out, and I think it's still. I believe it's still in the show.
Oh yeah. So this goes back to our dark matter whiskey club. There's John John Stead with his contribution. Yeah, I'm saying that we started this tradition in season 1, and then by the time the show ended in season 3, I ended up bringing home almost like 70 bottles of really high-end whiskey.
Wow.
Okay, that's just a photo of Noreen Landry's sketches. Noreen is our costume designer, and in the middle you'll notice Wendy, the robot, her outfit. And I think on the right is a spacesuit, and on the left I don't recall what that one was.
Really cool pajamas.
Maybe. Oh, and there's Jodelle with her goggles. She loved those goggles.
I can totally see why. Like my little pair that I have, I use them as a headband sometimes. They just feel cool.
Katie, you should bring out cosplay for the season 1.
I think I should. How many weeks do we have until we get to it?
To what?
To the finale.
2 weeks. We have 12 and 13. Oh, and there's on our left is Ivan Bartok, our co-exec producer, but our on-set producer. And there's Trevor Finn, who was our script coordinator for the first season. And in his left hand is the Pappy Van Winkle that he won at a lottery at the LCBO and brought in.
Wow.
Ooh.
Delicious.
That is cool.
And that's it. Oh, and there's our one of our various read through. So before, obviously, prep week kind of caps off with a read through, and usually we usually do it in this boardroom, and all the actors and the director and the department heads gather and go through the script, and hopefully if the actors have any issues, they will come to my office and we can address them rather than bringing them up on set. But I think that the cast was pretty good about that. Occasionally, I think Martin, you mentioned Anthony would always like to try to sort of try something a different way or add something. But otherwise, all good. No surprises.
Martin, it wasn't clear to me. Now, do you do writing yourself?
I have done. Yeah, I've written a few episodes of Sanctuary and a movie or two, but that's not my forte. I prefer to actually work with other people's writing who are much better at it than me, because I'm so critical of anything that I've ever written. I can't watch because it's so badly written. So I appreciate the skill set that somebody has that writes a beautiful episode, and I'd love to direct those. And it's easy for me to walk up to the writers and say that was an amazing script. It's very hard for myself to look at anything I've written and say it was anything but a script. So
it's pretty much the same thing I say when people ask me why don't you direct? I defer to the professionals.
Hey, you find your niche, you do what you do.
Joe, John Burns brings up something really interesting here, and I meant to ask both of you this question. Now, Five hands before he leaves through the airlock. Five hands him like a little box, and she has nothing to do with any mischief.
Nope, not at all. No.
I thought the whole time that she's like doing something smart, like she's like, she's gonna like somehow space this guy, or somehow kill him. Turns out she was being honest the whole time. It was like there was some sort of problem.
Well, the lives of her fellow crew members are on the line as well. So
that's true. But she was smart, so I was like, she's doing something 5-ish, and then it turned out like no, she just needed to open the doors so that 2 can come back in.
And 5 didn't know. John Burns says 5 did not know about 2. Correct? He did. She did. Yeah, she did not know about 2. Thank you, John Burns. Okay, gentlemen, we've had you for a while, and I will just wanted to say thank you, Martin and Joe, for an amazing time. Is there anything you would like to add, either of you?
I really appreciate being invited into a forum like this. This is I don't often get a chance to do it, and every time I come away from it going, that was fun. I like remembering all this kind of stuff. It's just so much fun to go back into these kind of things. I say the same things at conventions. If I ever go to a convention, it's there's a million stories to tell about these kind of things, and I'm always reminded as we go of all of these things. So, yeah, thank you very much. Thanks, Joe, and thanks, PJ, for inviting me, and to Nina and Katie and ADEGA. I appreciate you guys being in here with me.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was very nice to meet you.
Thank you. You're always welcome back.
And I'm definitely going to check out those Netflix shows you told me about.
Oh, good.
Yes,
don't worry about don't watch the trailers. Just go right into the series and right into the movie.
I've learned my lesson. The trailers always get me. I'm like, oh.
Yeah,
and we will be linking those shows, links to those shows below in the description of the show when we're done. The stuff that Martin has been working on and is working on. And I wanted to give Joe the last word.
Again, I mean, Martin, a pleasure. I mean, we haven't actually done a face-to-face in
a very long time,
a while. So it's great. You haven't changed a bit. It's kind of disconcerting, to be honest with you. But I know you work out like a demon. I think you still do.
I do. I try. I have young kids, so I need to stay young. But it's funny. This is the other night I was saying that we were FaceTiming each other, texting each other. Ben Browder. And that's what I looked like the other night when I was talking to Ben.
You got Cheryl.
You look like a sheriff in one of those old-timey westerns.
Last night, my son said, "Okay, we're going to shave it off, but you have to go to old-timey inventors." So I had that. He went to. It was hilarious. It was hilarious. He just said, "I'm going to shave you, Dad."
That's hilarious.
Oh, I love it.
Well, it was great seeing you, and Katie. It was great seeing you both. I'm sorry, sort of ADEGA, we kind of lost you, but hope to see you next week. And PJ, thanks again for hosting. Much appreciated.
Yeah.
Thank you.
PJ.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Martin, Joe, Nina, Katie, ADEGA. Thank you, Dee Dee Myers, Peggy, Luis Barrow, everybody, John Burns. Thank you, NB Geeks, Dee Dee Myers, Team Raza Europe, Colin, Matt Ryan, Corrine, Jerry, everybody, Susanna. So many people have been in here tonight. Thank you, everybody. Be safe. Have an awesome, awesome night, day, morning, wherever you are, and join us next week. And really quick, we are going to be part of Virtual TrekCon in 2 weeks. But that means we're going to be doing our regular show as part of Virtual TrekCon with the Seventh Rule guys.
We'll be having a Trek guy next week as a guest star on one of the episodes. So just saying.
Thank you, everybody. Stay safe, and see you guys next week.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye.
I just noticed we all wave with the same hand.
It's weird.
You're right, I guess.
Yeah.
To the queen.
There we go.